Hello everyone, 76 Patriot here, and today I want to do my Senate prediction for the month of August. And in fact, as I mentioned in my last video, I may actually start doing these more kind of on a bi-weekly basis, or at least more routinely. So without further ado, we're going to jump right in, start by filling out the safe Democrat states. And these are ones that there's not really a lot of debate, at least in my opinion, for either side as far as who is going to win them. Of course, we have the West Coast. We just went through that. We have all the New England states, Mid Atlantic states. Several I do want to very briefly mention here. The state of Maryland, of course, has Larry Hogan, the formerly very, very popular moderate Republican governor of the state. The problem is for Hogan, well, first of all, I'll say I do think that he will perform a bit more respectably than your average kind of no-name Republican who would end up losing by 35 points or whatever in the state. I think he'll probably win by lose by significantly less than that, maybe 20 points or something. But at the end of the day, it's a federal race, and it's just far too of a liberal state to really have an upset, unfortunately. So New Jersey, very similar thing. Republicans were kind of debating will Bob Menendez, the scandal-plagued incumbent, step down? I mean, not step down, rather. I don't know if he already has stepped down. Gosh, I should look at that. But seriously, um, would he mount a third-party bid, rather, is what I meant, against Andy Kim, basically the nominee? And could that potentially result in an GOP upset? I don't think so at this point. Probably going to be a Dem hold by about 12 points at the end of the day. Um, Other than that, we have Minnesota. Minnesota is weird. I mean, sure, Tim Walz is from Minnesota, but I do think that Trump is probably going to perform at least several points better, if not more, relative to 2020. However, Amy Klobuchar is just a weird bird electorally speaking. She's probably going to win by like 13 or something crazy when it's all said and done. I don't know why. Just like, go ask somebody in Minnesota why they like this flaming leftist lady. Whatever. Can't help it. So, the state of Maine is another one. This is kind of a big one. Both Maryland and Maine shifted slightly to the left since my last prediction, like a month ago or whenever it was. So now they're both safe. Maine is one. Maine is weird because Angus King, I mean, he's a guy that I could see a lot of Republicans supporting. I don't know why. Maybe you're a very, very moderate type, obviously, not your MAGA type. But he's an independent. He's received that kind of crossover support in the past. Well, first of all, Maine is a state I could see the Trump performing much better in the at-large, the at-large vote, electoral vote. However, I don't know if it's going to be enough. And additionally, I think Angus King would outrun Harris significantly. So that's it for those states. Now, moving on to, well, I believe that's actually it for the safe Dem states. Moving on to the safe Republican states, of course, we have a plethora of states in the West here. We have, all these states in the plains to Missouri. Some Dems are crazy. Your election Dems are coping. Could Josh Hawley go down? Not a chance in a billion years. I'll just tell you that right now. West Virginia. This is big, guys. It's an automatic flip out of the gate. We can see Republicans, flipping the state probably by Jim Justice, and probably by like 35 points at the end of the day. Joe Manchin's retiring. I'm not the biggest Jim Justice fan. I would have preferred somebody a bit less moderate, a bit more conservative. But regardless, it's going to be so great on election night, out of the gate, basically to see this as a guaranteed flip. One important more seat on the path to the majority. So that's basically it, I think, for the safe Republican seats. Now let's move on to the likely Democrat states, kind of next characterization here. And we'll start off with the state of New Mexico. This is one where one of the Dominici family, very prominent political Republican dynasty in the state, I believe it's the daughter of the former governor, and possibly was he a senator too. I'm maybe mixing up my people. but certainly part of that family is running against Martin Heinrich, the kind of meh incumbent in the state. Heinrich will probably win by 7 or maybe 8 at the end of the day, just due to the nature of New Mexico politics. But I do think he'll maybe see a slight decrease in his performance relative to last time. So that is basically it for the likely Dem states. Let's move on to the likely Republican states, of which there are several. Of course, we have the state of Texas here. This is a big one. We've got Ted Cruz up, and let me just get out of the gate and say I do not imagine a scenario in which Ted Cruz repeats his 2018 near loss. Not going to happen. He is an underperformer. I will say that he's always been an underperformer for whatever reason in the state. He will probably win by about 7, maybe. If let's assume Trump's winning by 10, 9 or 10, which I think he probably will. So you can see a couple of points split there. I would totally expect that and not, I'd be shocked if that happens. But he is winning at the end of the day. Let's just be real. Colin Allred is a pretty milquetoast kind of O'Rourke 2.0 opponent, if you will. And then moving to Florida, of course, we have Rick Scott, another routine underperformer, which is kind of crazy. That's going to change this time. He's going to finally kind of break that curse, if you will. Florida, obviously, goes without saying, is completely radically changed to a very ruby red Republican state. And I think Scott probably wins. Again, he may underperform Trump by like a point or two, or in line with Trump, really, at this point. So he'll probably win by about 7. I still think Trump is probably going to win by 7 or 8. So that's basically it. And Republicans are at 50 guys in this kind of model here, which is absolutely huge. We've already gained 1 seat in West Virginia. So now let's move on to the lean Democrat states. And we're getting to the point of kind of some of these states are where the real battle will be fought. So lean Democrat states, we have several. We have the state of Pennsylvania, first of all. Pennsylvania is an interesting state because I'm still predicting, regardless of all the noise you hear in the news, I still think Trump is going to win PA narrowly by like a point or 2. I still do. The trends with white working class, the voter registration, I just think at this point, even with all the Harris, momentum, quote unquote, whether it's manufactured or whatever, I think a lot of it is. But still, voter registrations for Republicans and a lot of metrics like that are just too strong for Harris, particularly, to overcome, I believe. However, Bob Casey, I think, is on track to win, probably by about 3 points. And it basically, the Casey name is practically an institution in the state. He's won all his races by massive margins. I think that's going to, again, change this time. But I do still predict Casey holding on. He's been able to grift his way as a supposed kind of likable moderate. And he'll probably win by 3, maybe 4 at the end of the day. I just don't see this massive split like we've been seeing in some of the polls, just because massive ticket splitting is probably not going to happen in such a closely divided swing state this year. Next, we have the state of Virginia, and this is one I may regret this because Virginia is a state. The Senate race should probably be at least likely, if not safe, honestly, at this point. Probably likely, honestly. But I want to have some optimism for Hung Cao. Hung Cao is a really good candidate. I think we just haven't seen some of the momentum that needs to be on his side to even have a hope of winning, flipping the seat. Tim Kaine is a somewhat likable, in the state, somewhat liked incumbent senator. He's not like the most crazy, highest approval rating of a senator, but still, Hung Cao, it still is a massive Herculean task going against an incumbent in a more blue state like Virginia. I still think Hung Cao is probably going to lose by about like 5 at the end of the day, so just on the edge of where this would be, maybe just slightly under 5, which would be right on the teetering between lean and likely, kind of in my personal models that I use, characterizations, I should say. But regardless, I'm still going to leave it as that. I'm not ashamed of that. Whatever. If I'm wrong, I'm wrong. And I think that is actually it for the Democrat-leaning states. So, moving on to Republican-leaning states. Here we are. Let's first off deal with the state of Montana. Montana is one. We're going to look at some polls here too for a minute. Montana is one. If we look in the Real Clear Aggregate, Tim Sheehy has taken the lead as of, I guess, a month or two ago. I don't know exactly when this happened, but he is in the lead now. This was not the case when I made a video, I forget, like it was a number of months ago, talking about the Montana Senate race. Tester is still leading. That has changed. Sheehy's up by over 3. This is great. This is beautiful. I think this is going to happen. I honestly predict Sheehy to go out and flip the state. This is massive. Sheehy's a pretty good candidate for the state, I think. And Tester has been able to grift basically his whole way for over like a decade and a half in Montana politics. That ends this November. Sheehy probably wins again, similar to that mark. Honestly, I predict Sheehy to win by a bit more, probably like 4 points, maybe even more, maybe 5. Who knows? If Trump's winning the state by 20, possibly. Who knows? I just don't see how he could hold on. I think the ticket splitting kind of chasm would be too vast at that point. Ohio, I'll get to that in a moment. There was a scenario in which I theoretically could see Sherrod Brown holding on. I doubt it. But, because Trump's probably going to win the state by, 10? Montana, he's probably winning it by 20. There's just no chance, really, at this point. So, we've taken the majority, officially. Moving on, now, like I promised, to the state of Ohio. This is a weird one. We can see Brown up in the Real Clear Aggregate. He's leading by 5. And, there are some Republican pollsters in here. We see Fabrizio. That's, I believe, I think he polled for President Trump. I'm not sure. I think so. Favorable to Republicans. Brown up by 4. Another Republican poll, it looks like. Brown up by 6. I just don't know, honestly, at this point, how accurate this is. Because pollsters did overestimate Brown big. I believe it was in 2018. They had him up by like double digits. I'm pretty sure it's the race I'm thinking of. And he ended up winning by much, quite a bit less than that. And so Ohio polls can be weird. They had like Tim Ryan and JD Vance tied in 2022, and Vance won by like 6. So I've learned not to trust Ohio polls, a ton. I will still rate this as lean, albeit I expect Marino to win by less than Sheehy, for sure. This is kind of right on the edge of right on the edge and teetering again between my tilt and lean characterization. So honestly, at this point, I see Marino probably winning by like 2 points, probably at the end of the day, when it's all said and done. Marino is a good candidate. He really is, I think. And I think Trump can drag him across, particularly if Trump does better this time. So I think that's it for the Republican-leaning states. So we have 52 now. There's 3 official flips, one just kind of out of the gate, and then 2, actual candidates, incumbents going down. Now let's move on to the tilt states, and there are several, of course, tilt Democrat states. We'll start off with the state of Wisconsin. Let's get some of these Rust Belt states out of the way. This is one, I am going to rate this as tilt Dem. I just don't see enough evidence, other outside of polls to show that Baldwin is massively up. I just don't. On the other flip side, I just don't see enough evidence to show that Hovde is in the driver's seat, because he's not, unfortunately. It's hard going up against an incumbent in a closely divided swing state. If we look at polls, we can see Baldwin is up by 6 in the average. I'll just say, polls in Wisconsin in election years massively overestimate Democrats. I will just say that. This is the state that had Biden winning by like 10 in 2020. It was one of his narrowestly won states. So, Trump didn't lead a single poll in the state in 2016. Not a single poll. So this is, kind of to be expected, the strong Dem bias. So you could honestly say it's a toss-up. I really do believe it's a toss-up. So I probably see Baldwin taking the state by like, around 2 right now. But we'll have to see what happens. Same thing in Michigan. Similar thing, I should say. Slotkin, who is kind of this fake moderate liberal, She's leading by slightly less, actually, around 6. This is one I probably see her winning by a squinch more, just a tad more. She might win by 2 and change, which I guess would kind of be lean dem at the end of the day, so I don't know why I put it as tilt. But I'll leave it as tilt just because, I still think it will be a much closer race than even is expected. So these are states, they're definitely not out of play. An upset is possible. These Democrats could lose. Totally. I'm not going to rule that out. They're kind of, depending how well Trump does in these states, some of these candidates' future is riding on that, those coattails, because they just don't really have enough tank in the gas as of right now, to fully win kind of under their own power, if you will. So moving on to the state of Arizona, let's move down there. Make sure I pull the right one up. There we go. Kari Lake is losing to Gallego. He's up in the polls by just over 3 points. And this is honestly sad to see. Lake is a candidate. I did like her, and I still like her, despite a lot of the things people say about her. The problem is she's just polling so bad. And we could say it's a Dem overestimation. We could say that. I don't know at this point. I really just think Arizona on the Senate level is gone currently for the GOP. Again, I really want to be proven wrong. I really do. I mean, I want nothing more than to see Senator Lake rather than Senator Gallego, who is crazy left-wing lunatic progressive, radical. Just pretends to be a moderate so he can grift his way in the U.S. Senate now. But I just don't see Senator Lake happening as of right now. I think Gallego is probably going to win by like 2. I don't see this massive blowout for him, though. That's just not going to happen. And we can even see, if we go back here, the polls have somewhat kind of flattened out. Because he was up big. Well, it doesn't show all of these polls, but there was a number of polls. He was up like by 8 and 7 and 6 and 7, on and on and on. So he's only up by like 3 and change. So I could see a Lake win, theoretically. I just don't think it's likely at the moment. And then we have the state of Nevada. This is probably the closest state to a true toss-up, in my opinion. And honestly, I'm still at a coin toss. I really don't know. We flip a coin. I don't know what to put Nevada as, honestly. Republicans are doing great. Nearly every metric. Trump is going to do great with Hispanics. That, and I keep mentioning Trump because it's the elephant in the room. You can't not in an election year where you have coattails. If Trump does better in Nevada, if he actually wins the state, like I think he will, Sam Brown is going to obviously have a fighting shot against Jackie Rosen. It's kind of this fake moderate, again, very meh kind of milquetoast, relatively not very well known incumbent. I think Sam Brown has a very good shot, possibly the best out of any of these 4 states that I just covered in the 3 states in the tilt category. As of right now, I'm going to give it to Rosen. As of this second, if we look at polling, just to show why, we'll see Rosen's up by 4. I'm not sure how accurate that is. I will say polling on the Senate level is sometimes iffy in Nevada. Typically, polls overestimate Republicans, though, in the state, so do keep that in mind. But I'm not sure. At the end of the day, I totally could see Sam Brown winning. On the other hand, I wouldn't be shocked if he didn't. As much as I'd love to give this to the GOP right now, I'm just going to leave it as tilt dem. I feel right about that, considering there is an incumbent. But with that out of the way, guys, here we are. This is my Senate map for August. Oh man, this is going to be such a wild ride going into November. We got to keep fighting because, if we don't, we may not even get this much, But I think we can get more. We could win every one of these states. I mean, seriously, probably if we got out, we really upped our ground game, just basically, had Republicans turn out like never before, we could probably get close to a supermajority at some point. That's kind of crazy to think. But let's aim high, guys. Let's not get, complacent on one hand, but we certainly can't be dooming like a lot of people seem to be on the other. So with that, thank you guys so much for watching this video. I'll see you in the next one, and have a great day.